I call this meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7 p.m. Please join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Thank you. We will be, motions in order, will be suspending the rules this evening because we do have 5 public hearings this evening, and I know we have a couple scheduled and expected speakers. So, that being said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We are now operating under suspended rules. Madam Clerk, would you please read actually, before we get there, entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 19th, 2024, as well as April 2nd, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now, Madam Clerk, would you mind reading the hearing for the first public hearing?
Yes, Mr. President. Public hearing for the following loan order. Ordered that $35,181,000 is appropriated for the purpose of financing the construction and administration for the permanent PFAS facility to be located at the Wading River Plant, 250 Balcom Street, Mansfield, Massachusetts, including, without limitation, all costs thereof, as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the General Laws, that to meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Mayor, is authorized to borrow $35,181,000 under Section 8(4) of Chapter 44 of the General Laws, Chapter 29C of the General Laws, or any other enabling authority, that such bonds or notes shall be general obligations of the city unless the Treasurer, with the approval of the Mayor, determines that they should be issued as limited obligations and may be secured by local system revenues as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C. That the Treasurer, with the approval of the Mayor, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust established pursuant to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and/or a security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan, and for any federal or state aid available for the project or for the financing thereof, that the Mayor is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection to expend all funds available for the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Courtney Allen, Superintendent of Water, Attleboro.
Jonathan.
I'll start. We've been living this for 3 years, so everybody's heard the history of PFAS, so I'll just give a quick summary. The Massachusetts PFAS regulations landed April of 2021. The Wading River plant was out of compliance by May of that year. We knew we were going to have issues there because we'd done some voluntary sampling the late summer and the early fall before. We'd already had a pilot proposal for THM precursor removal at the plant, so PFAS removal was added to the piloting. We did 3 rounds of piloting. During round number 2, we found elevated manganese, which was also higher than expected as the plant. So piloting for manganese was also removed, also added to the pilot. The plant was shut down in the fall of 2021 as soon as we were past the summer demand. We restarted it during the drought in 2022 to meet demand, and it's been shut down since late September of 22. So the system remains in compliance, but that is only because Wading River has been shut down. And again, 1/3 of our permitted volume of water comes from Wading River. So with the plant finally online, or when it was operational before the regulation fell, it could produce about half of our water in the winter and about 25% in the summer. So where we are currently, we've been pretty fortunate with the rainfall. It's been raining for only about a year and a half, so it's still shut down. The piloting finished late in the summer, and we received the final piloting report in March, and that was submitted to DEP late last week. The temporary facility was bid and awarded. Again, this is half capacity of the existing plant, so it will be able to treat 1 million gallons a day. And this will be what we treat currently and PFAS removal only. There may be some improvement on what we're seeing in THMs when the plant comes back online. And that's just because we have particle filters before the PFAS filters so that they don't clog up quite so easy. We expect it to be online late summer to early fall of 2024. So we will be another summer without it, but it will be available this winter when we begin refilling Manchester. So where we are now for the final plant, we are in design. The design will cover the design of the permanent plant as well as permitting with DEP and Mansfield, and it will bring us through bidding and award. There's no construction services with the consultant, and there's no construction funds in that 1.377 million. For the final plant, several treatment options were looked at during piloting. We initially thought it was just going to be one round, but between the water department and the engineer, we weren't completely thrilled or sold what we saw in pilot round number 1. So the extra rounds were to tweak the treatment and get the PFAS, manganese, and the organics as low as we can. Their final recommendations on the plant is a ion exchange resin for organics removal for the THMs, green sand filtration for manganese removal, and once all of that is out of the water and it's as pristine as it can be, an anion exchange bentonite clay media for the PFAS removal. And again, that's currently in design. We should see 30% plans actually in the next couple weeks. The city applied for SRF funding through the state, and that's the loan order you're looking at. That would cover the construction and construction services for the permanent plant. The project was approved. We were a very, very high priority project, which was good news. The way the SRF loan works is anything in this plant that is related to PFAS or PFAS removal is eligible for 0% interest. The remainder of the plant is a higher interest rate than that, but it's lower than current market value. The last update we got was it was 2%, which is way lower than we're able to borrow privately. The bulk of the plant we're hoping to be 0% interest. As I said earlier, the water is pristine as we can get it before it hits the PFAS removal. The better the PFAS removal train of the plant will work. And in discussions with DEP, they've been approving some plants that way. Some loan forgiveness is possible for this loan. The current estimate, most current estimate that we got in February was about 13%, and that can change, and that's related to the demographics of Attleboro itself. The permanent plant will be online, expected late 2027. And I don't know if anyone saw the news early last week, but the EPA has finalized PFAS regs of their own that are much lower. 6 of the compounds are the same, and there's an additional new family of compounds they're regulating. Some of them are higher levels than Massachusetts regulates, and there's a couple in particular that we actually see in the water that are the bulk of our problems, and that's PFOS and PFOA are being regulated to 4 parts per trillion. And the new design of the plant will meet that for piloting. So that's my quick summary.
So I'm assuming when you say PFO, we're not talking about PAMFO.
That's right.
Do we have any, Todd, Councilor Coates?
This all sounds great. The one question I had was with regards to this summer. And when you talk about the temporary plant coming online in fall of this year, my expectation is as a result of that, even with all of this rain that we have with Wading River offline, I think for the public, the expectation is that we'll still see some drought restrictions and whatnot this summer, even though we've had quite a bit of rain. Is that probably safe to say?
That's very true. Per our permits, well, West Street is not renewed yet, the Wading River permit is, and per our permit, we are required to have mandatory restrictions of some sort between May 1st and September 30th of each year. The state gives several ways that you can do this. One of them is tracking a stream gauge down, going almost into Providence Harbor down the 10 Mile. And it's not a good option because if you're tracking stream gauge levels, we may have to put out water restrictions like within a 48-hour notice. The other thing I didn't like about that option is there is a private reservoir upstream from the stream gauge. So if they release or they decide not to release, it affects whether or not we can sell water. Other options they gave, that the state gave, was either 1 or 2 day a week watering, which is far more restrictive than we do.
Can I just interrupt? Does this have to do with the?
Sorry, no.
Because, no, if it does, if we could just keep it aligned to what.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Okay, great, thank you.
But basically, the reservoir system is starting healthy. Our summer practice and normal operation of the plant is to pull everything from Manchester. Without Wading River running, it's just Manchester, and we don't have the capability to refill it while it's online. So basically, even if these restrictions weren't mandated through the state, there would be some sort of restrictions.
Okay. And the other question is, for Manchester Reservoir, is it correct that we're not seeing any of these PFAS chemicals in Manchester Reservoir? We're only seeing them in Wading River,
We're
correct?
seeing the real problems that we have tend to be up in the Taunton Basin. So we see them at Blake's and Miramichi and Crocker Pond. We do see them at the West Street plant. Hoppin Hill is near Pristine. That's our furthest north for the West Street plant. Luther Reservoir, which is our transfer reservoir, is kind of in the middle. Manchester is fairly low, and then we have kind of elevated levels at Orrs Pond. The new reg will be a rolling annual average for all of these new regulated compounds. We saw this coming, and one of the items, and you'll see it in the CIP, is pilot testing for the West Street plant, and that is due to Orrs Pond, in case we were forced to keep Orrs Pond online. For now, we are in compliance.
Okay, so in your estimate, once we approve this, we should be, as far as PFAS are concerned, we should have the problem under control, even with the new EPA regulations?
We should. Again,
Yeah, I mean,
West
you can't
Street's
guarantee,
kind
yeah.
of like at West Street, we're borderline with the new regs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. PFOA?
Am I correct that you have already sent out water regulations for the summer?
Yes, we
Okay.
send them by direct mail and they start May 1st.
Okay. Really? We've already received it.
Okay, additional questions? Comments, concerns? Courtney, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Dolan, do you see, and Vice President Dolan, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
I declare that public hearing closed, and I would ask Madam Clerk to go on to a reading of the second public hearing.
Thank you. Public hearing to amend section 15-1.3 of the revised ordinances by striking the words 70 police patrolmen and replacing them with 85 police officers. The amended section to read in full as follows. 15-1.3 staff. The mayor, upon recommendation of the police chief and subject to appropriations, may employ no more than 1 deputy chief, 3 captains of police, 5 lieutenants of police, 11 sergeants of police, 85 police officers, and such detentions, attendants, reserve officers, auxiliary officers, special officers, clerks, dispatchers, and building custodians, as the mayor, subject to the approval of the municipal council, may from time to time determine.
Thank you. Do we have anyone speak in favor?
Evening.
Evening.
My name's Kyle Legging, Chief of Police, City of Attleboro. Appreciate being invited here tonight to speak in front of this honorable body. And if you have any questions regarding this business sent down by the mayor, I'd be glad to answer any of them.
Council Holmes?
Thank you. We spoke on the phone, and I thought that your explanation was perfect. Do you mind just sharing with the council?
Sure. So our goal is not to fill these positions. Obviously, these positions are allows us more flexibility of backfilling for positions on retirements, people leaving for other departments that are higher paying, or we can project better. If we're capped at the 70, then we don't have that luxury of, if the academy starts in June and the person's not leaving till August, technically, we can't bring them on. We can't process them, bring them on hiring, so we need some buffer room and what have you. This was actually 25 years ago. Actually, I think, Kate, you were on the council back then, when Mayor Robbins updated the allotment to 70, knowing, it was a great idea by Mayor Robbins at the time, and knowing that, we were never going to fill. I think she added 25 at the time, but it was just for capacity, future capacity, and doing exactly what we did over the years of having that buffer where we can move and project vacancies and retirements and what have you. But it's not to fill these positions. Obviously, we don't have capacity to do it, but the big mechanism that I know 100% we're not going to fill them is the mayor and this honorable body. It comes down to funding. So we were at 70 for about 25 years. We were anywhere near 70 capacity, but it allowed us to have that buffer for replacement and future growth of the city. It's obviously constantly changing, but by the time they fill these positions, I hopefully will be retired on a golf course in Florida. God willing.
Council Holmes?
Thank you. You also mentioned the hiring process. It takes about a year for someone.
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of the city councilors that have served in the past have heard me say this. It takes a year, sometimes longer, to bring someone on and get them fully trained. Why is that? The academies are only offered certain parts or times of the year. For us, there's only 3 regional academies that we can basically go to because of geographical distances. Boylston, Randolph, and Plymouth. Anything beyond that is travel prohibitive for us, the police officers. Then the process of civil service of hiring police officers is an abomination. It's civil service, its usefulness has expired. It served a purpose 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it has not kept up contemporary times. We're trying to get out of civil service. This honorable body supported a local option from the mayor, and it's gone nowhere at the legislature. There's 2 people predominantly blocking that, a senator and a representative who serve on the joint committee. And the mayor and I both spoke to these gentlemen and laid the case out for Attleboro, and in a short, long story, they don't want to see civil service go away. It's an old boy bureaucratic system where people are going to lose their jobs if everyone bails ship on civil service, and everyone is bailing ship on civil service. A lot of cities and towns have voted out. A lot of towns have that annual meeting. I forget what they call it. Is it annual meeting?
Town meeting.
Town meeting. They can vote it out. So basically, how you got into it is how you came out. We voted it as a city council. My personal opinion is we can vote it out. However, our city solicitor disagrees with my logic. So We need legislature approval to remove ourselves from that civil service law, and I think we could hire more effectively. But we're constrained by that. That is a very linear process, and we lose thousands and thousands of dollars every year hiring in a civil service linear process. We're going through this process right now. We've processed candidates, the medicals, they cost money, the psychologicals, they cost money, the PAT tests, they cost money, only to get to the end and they get hired by another department. Well, we just spent taxpayer money trying to fill those positions. Several letters over the years I sent down to this council, my frustration, asking for more money in the hiring process. So it's a laborious task. Once they go to the academy, it's 6 months. They're 6 months into the academy. Once they get out of the academy, there's an FTO process, field training officer. So when they get out of the academy, they only know enough to have a license to be a police officer. Then they have to know how to perform the job to the policies, standards of the Attleboro Police Department. So they're teamed up with a senior officer, and we have a FTO training process where they are graded, rated, and sometimes separated if they don't work out. Policing may not be for everybody, or it may not be a good fit. So that's our vetting process. That takes another 6 months. So depending on when the academy is, then you get into the academy, and then the FTO training thereafter, it could be well over a year. So we need to project appropriately. If we don't have that room in order to do it, like Diana said, then it's a 1-for-1. We have to wait till somebody comes off the full-time salary in order to get somebody onto the full-time salary. You know what I mean? So if we're able to buffer, we can have a seamless transition with minimal overlap.
Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delosio. Thanks, Chief Agnew, for coming down. On the civil service, you mentioned that, so we got a couple sublet blocks, but other cities and towns are doing it. Why can't we just go?
Councilor Angelo, if I can just remind you, the public hearing isn't about civil service. The chief did a nice job of tying it to it, but if we could just stay focused, if you can bring the question into what we're voting on, talking about tonight, then I
Okay,
appreciate
I
it.
just figured I would ask
Thank
Adam
you.
what he was talking about, so I'll take that offline.
Appreciate that, thank you. Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. So if someone's an FTO, are they taking up a slot? So if someone's retiring in 6 months and they already went through the academy and they're FTO, would that take up a slot?
Yes,
So there would be two people.
they're hiring, but depending on where the academy starts, once they get out of the academy, we can project. And after 14 years, I got this down to a science on when the person's going, when we can bring them on, how much money I have in the salary account. So you notice I don't come back and ask many times for money from this council. I do it only if I absolutely need to. I usually try to find the money within the budget. So that FTO, that person in the academy, we're not getting any productivity out of them until they come off FTO status. Unlike the fire department, if they are able to hire a paramedic, sure, they cannot fight fires, but they can do a service to the citizens via the paramedic. They can ride the rescue and treat patients and what have you. Unlike police, they don't go towards the productivity or service or minimum personnel on duty at a time until they're off FTO status, if that makes sense. So it's imperative that we get through the training and they become minimum staffing, if you will, so we don't have to spend the overtime to replace them to get to that objective of minimal staffing each shift, each day. So the longer we don't have them, the more overtime we're expending. And I try to keep that overtime budget within reason. As you can see over the years, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I do a good job on oversight and management of my overtime.
Thank you.
That's a pretty fair statement. Kovas.
Thank you, and thank you for coming out, Chief, and trying to figure out how to delicately ask this, but do we have any slots that are currently still being occupied by people that may not be actively sort of on the working or maybe sort of maybe serving in the military somewhere or those sort of
We have a lot of
things?
vacancies, but they're vacancies like active duty,
Okay.
waiting to go to the academy, in FTO. When I call them vacancies, they're not part of the minimal personnel to fill a shift. So we're paying these people, but they're in a position where they can't fulfill their duties, like line of duty injuries. They call them IOD, right? They're in
And they're
FTO.
taking up the 70 slots, one of the 70 slots.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So if they're taking up, like a person military active duty, if I know I'm having a retirement, like I have projected 3 retirements coming up next year, I would be able to start processing, backfilling, hiring, however, if I'm at 70, I can't, and the academy starts, if they're leaving in October and the academy starts in June, I'm at 70, we're out, I gotta wait another.
As a rough estimate, how many of the 70 currently are unable to sort of?
I put it out in my
actively-
monthly report every month. You'll see in the opening statement how many are on sick leave, IOD, active military duty, FTO, what academy they're attending, how many are in the academy. My first section of the monthly report breaks down the whole personnel of who's who in the zoo. So I want to say we're about 12 to 13, 14 right now.
Okay.
That we're not getting productivity out of for various reasons in various categories.
Okay, thank you.
So is it safe to say, Chief, that what you're doing is raising the ceiling to allow you to backfill, as well as put you in a position as the city continues to grow and the needs increase?
Correct. I suggested to the mayor, I'm just stealing Mayor Robbins' idea, and, you know, it was a good idea
Yeah.
back then, and it served us well for 25 years, so.
Additional questions or comments? All right, thanks, Chief.
As always, it's great to see you people. Thank you very much.
you.
Take care,
Appreciate
keep
it.
up the good work,
Thank
Chief. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Council Holmes, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
I declare that public hearing closed. We will now go on to the reading of the third public hearing.
Thank you. Public hearing for a petition from Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated, requesting permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures along and across the following public way. Forest Street, install one Joe pole on Forest Street, beginning at a point approximately 140 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Eddy Street and Forest Street, installing new 45/2 pole P5642-50 Forest Street.
Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Good evening.
It's Michael Parent. I work out of the Hopedale office for National Grid. Just here to talk about what we're requesting. So both of these poles, the next one will come up after. They're right aside the substation that's on this road, Eddy Street and Holman Street. The goal here is to put monitoring equipment on it, and it's for two purposes: for our purposes, also for the public, because we're going to be having a transparency initiative to allow customers or people to go online and see what load is available on particular feeders substations. So we need a pole that doesn't have anything on it outside of regular cross arms to carry this equipment. So that's what we're looking for here.
Any questions? Vice President Dolan?
Thanks. So just to be clear, this is an additional pole with nothing on it besides this monitoring equipment that you're referring to?
It'll carry the primary wire at the top. It'll have a cross arm on it, but underneath it will be that equipment, and it'll carry whatever wires are in the same path, whether it's communications or our secondary wire. But yeah, it won't have anything else on there.
Okay, thank you.
Council Follow.
Thank you, President Lucio. Can you explain to me why the public needs to be able to see what the load is that's available?
From what was explained to me, and I don't think it's available just yet, but it's, I guess if a business wants to come in, like a large business, and they see, hey, there's plenty of room for us to go in here, there'd be a good opportunity for us to pursue it. If they saw that it wasn't, it could be quite involved for us to get more load, or might have to bring another circuit in to feed them power, and it's a large process to do so.
So, if I may, so it will assist the business community, and you hope that it will encourage it because there will be adequate load.
Correct. It also could be for like residential, if somebody wants to build an underground development with several houses, they may have to look into the same thing if there's enough load to support it.
Right.
So.
That's a business of a different sort. Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Vice President Dolan, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
I declare that public hearing closed. We'll go on to a reading of the fourth public hearing.
Public hearing for a petition for Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid requesting permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures, along the following public way. Forest Street, install one SO pole on Forest Street beginning at a point approximately 56 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Holman and Forest Street. Install new pole 56 feet south of the intersection of Holman and Forest Streets.
Do we have anyone to speak in favor?
Michael Parent, National Grid. Same thing, pole for the same sort of equipment on a circuit going in the opposite direction. So we just need an intermediate pole to keep that up there.
Any questions? Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Have a good night.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Vice President Dolan, any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No.
I declare that public hearing closed, and Madam Clerk, if you would go on to the reading of the fifth and final public hearing, please.
Public hearing regarding the adoption of Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 139C, along with the additional provisions by amending Section 9-36.7 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as follows. 9-36.7 license fees shall not be required for certified seeing eye dogs, hearing dogs, dogs that are trained to assist the physically handicapped, or other service animals as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act or regulations promulgated thereunder, or governmental police dogs, nor shall license fees be required for dogs owned by persons aged 70 years or older or disabled veterans, subject to a limit of 2 dog licenses per person under this exemption. The person listed on the dog license must be the same person listed on the rabies and/or veterinary records.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak neither, anyone to speak against?
Can you go back? Because I'm going to speak in favor. May I recuse myself?
Sure.
Thank you.
We have one to speak in favor, and then we will recognize our Madam Clerk.
Kate Jackson, City Clerk. I just wanted to speak in favor of this new change. I think it's a wonderful idea. We do have many, many people in the city of Attleboro that do own dogs that are over the age of 70 and could use a little bit more help. I just want to remind everyone that this does not include if you have a kennel. A kennel license is not included in this, no matter how old you are. So, but we do speak in favor of this because we do have close to 5,000 dogs that we license here in the city, which is pretty amazing. But that's it. Any questions?
That's my role. Any questions for our speaker? All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have anyone else speak in favor? Anyone else, anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Councilor Lavoy, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. I declare that public hearing closed. We're going to rise from our public hearings, and we'll go into a reading of the mayor's communication.
April 16, 2024. Dear municipal councilors, I have attended and participated in a number of municipal building commission meetings over the last several months, and it occurred to me at a recent meeting that the group would be well served by the addition of a vice chair. Having a vice chair would allow the commission to maintain its regular meeting schedule in the event the chair is unavailable due to travel or illness. Adding a vice chair position would also afford more members of the commission the opportunity to serve in a leadership position. I have spoken with the current MBC Chair, Jack Jacoby, and he supports this change. Accordingly, I respectfully ask your honorable body to amend Section 2-8.1 of the revised ordinances by changing chairman to chair and adding the words "and vice chair" after the word chair.
Personnel, Veterans, Human Services, and Council Angelo, would you like to call for a public hearing on June 4th?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Second, motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Park and Forestry Derek Corsi regarding the need for funds for geese police services at the Judith H. Robbins Park. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $1,800 from account 1650100-511000 Park Salary and Wages to account 1650100-530101 Park Professional Services, supporting documents provided.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Human Resource Director Linda Davin requesting a change to the exempt classification plan by adding a zoo curator to the exempt classification plan for the Park and Forestry Department, Capron Park Zoo. Since the arrival of Zoo Director John Wright, he has been evaluating the staffing needs of the zoo based on his many years of experience in the zoo field. Zoo Director Wright has indicated the zoo would be better served having a zoo curator as part of the exempt classification plan instead of an assistant director. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body place the zoo curator to a grade 7 in the exempt classification plan. Additionally, in that this request involves an amendment to the classification plan established in section 13-3.1, a public hearing is required. I hereby request your honorable body call for a public hearing, supporting documents provided.
Personal, Veterans, Human Services, and Council Angelo, would you also like to call for a public hearing on June 4th?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Spencer Lins, 211 Pine Street, Apartment 6, to fill an expired term on the Conservation Commission, term to expire February 2027, supporting documents provided.
Personnel, Veterans, Human Services, please.
For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body we have received the resignation of Ken Solemn from the Sustainability Commission. Please join me in thanking Mr. Solemn for his service to the city.
That's an FYI to all councilors.
The mini-split air conditioning unit and condenser in the Shang building for the Registry of Motor Vehicles needs to be replaced. My office is working with purchasing to get quotes for the replacement. In order to have funding available when all the quotes are received, I am requesting funding now. This request includes a 15% contingency. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $21,735 from account 11241000-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 11241000-584052 Citywide Air Conditioning Unit.
City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Planning and Development Gary Arasian regarding the receipt of a community planning grant from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, in the amount of $89,250. This grant is to conduct a corridor redevelopment strategy of the US Route 1A corridor in Attleboro from the Attleboro-Pawtucket corporate line to the Attleboro-North Attleboro corporate line. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments, supporting documents provided.
Zoning, please.
Thank you. I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould regarding Fund 3336 Waiting Pilot Study. On February 16, 2021, the Honorable Municipal Council voted to authorize $505,000 in debt for project costs related to the Wading River Pilot Study. This authorization included $5,000 that could be used for borrowing costs. The cost of issuance was paid as provided by Massachusetts general law from premiums received when the debt instruments were issued. As such, this $5,000 will not be issued as it is not needed for the project expenses or cost of issuance. In order to remove this authorized debt from the city's statement of indebtedness, I respectfully request your honorable body rescind $5,000 of the debt authorized on February 16, 2021 for the Wading River pilot study supporting documents provided.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding the following fiscal year 23 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year 23 business cycle. Name of vendor, Lowe's, in the amount of $23.60. Another one, Lowe's, $48.62. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay these previous year school bills totaling $72.22 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication supporting documents provided.
Finance Committee, please.
For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body we have received the resignation of Marcia Sweeney from the Attleboro Council on Human Rights. Please join me in thanking Ms. Sweeney for her service to the city.
That is an FYI, and thank you to Ms. Sweeney.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Michael Tyler, concerning the need to purchase a 6-foot trash pump. A trash pump is a specialized type of water pump used to handle water with debris or solids, such as leaves, sticks, and mud. Changing weather patterns, rising water tables, and increased rainfall amounts are contributing to more frequent street flooding in our current inventory of our 4-foot trash pumps, having been used much this year. The addition of a 6-foot trash pump will allow for removal of more water in less time and will help us better keep our streets passable during flood situations. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body authorize the city to expend $37,572 of ARPA funds on costs associated with the purchase of flood mitigation equipment supporting documents provided.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Water Superintendent Courtney Allen concerning the need for an appropriation of funds related to a joint MVP grant with the town of Rentham for the removal of Crocker Pond Dam. Rentham recently contacted the Water Department to gauge interest in applying for a Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness MVP grant to begin an investigation of the feasibility of removing the dam and replacing the culvert. The MVP grant application will be done as a team effort between Attleboro and Rentham, with Rentham taking lead during the application process, as well as being the financial lead should this team project be chosen to receive the grant funds. A team application is more favorable to receive funding than is a project submitted by a single community, so both communities are more likely to receive funding applying together rather than separately. The scope of work for the project is $300,000. The match percent for this year's MVP grant is 10%. The $30,000 match will be split with Attleboro paying 60%, or $18,000, and Rentham paying 40%, or $12,000. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $18,000 from account 6100-359000, Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings, to fund account 6100-563000, Water Enterprise Fund intergovernmental state match, to cover Attleboro's 60% of the required match. Please note that spending of these funds is subject to award of the MVP grant, as well as execution of an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Rentham supporting documents provided.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Michael Tyler, regarding the need for funds to have the entire drainage system from the outfall pipe on Clayton Street to the inlet pipes on Tomlinson professionally viewed by underground cameras due to multiple flooding events. Ideally, these services should come from Public Works. However, purchase orders have been secured out of citywide survey camera work and police detail accounts in order to expedite the process. Upon approval from your honorable body of the following transfer, the accounting office will make the necessary account corrections to account for these expenditures in Public Works. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $14,496.32 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to the following: $12,950 to account 1420100-530184 Public Works Survey Camera Work, $1,546.32 to account 1420100-530186 Public Works Police Details, supporting documents provided.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Library Director Amy Ringlinger regarding the need for funds to pay the remaining library electricity expenses for fiscal year '24. Therefore, I respectfully request your honorable body transfer $15,000 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1610100-521020 Library Lights and Power, supporting documents provided.
That'll go to the Finance Committee, please.
Sincerely, Kathleen DeSimone, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now go into the reading of the clerk's communication.
Clerk's communication, April 16, 2024. We have received an application to waive section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages or wine on city property from Skyrock Brewery, 25 Riverbank Road, on June 9, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
License Committee, please.
We have received...
And Councilor Lavoy, would you like to call for a public hearing on May 21st?
I would. Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
We have received a keeping a stand in a public place license application from Tracy Sinelli, 11 French Farm Road, to be held at 11 Riverbank Road, June 9, 2024, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
License Committee and Councilor Lavoy, would you like to call for a public hearing on May 21st?
I would. Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
And that concludes communications for this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We will now go into committee reports, beginning with always with Council Cobus.
All right, reporting for the Finance Committee, from the docket of April 16th, 2024. I move to call a special meeting on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, for the presentation of the fiscal year 25 proposed general funds budget and the fiscal year 25 proposed budget for the water and wastewater enterprise funds.
Second.
Second motion is in order. Any questions or comments?
None.
Okay. This requires a roll call vote. We'll begin with Councilor Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And reporting from the docket of April 16th, 2024, I move that vote number 14 of February 21st, 2023 of the Municipal Council be amended by striking the figure $2,500,000 and replacing it with the figure $1,300,000. And secondly, that $1,225,000 in ARPA funds be authorized for the following: wastewater capital $60,000, wastewater vehicle $105,000, wastewater camera $200,000, water capital $144,000, water vehicle $716,000.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
This is something we discussed extensively last week in committee. This is redirecting the funds that, because the construction came in less than we were anticipating for the Pawtucket interchange, we're going to redirect some of those funds to some additional, some of the ARPA funds to additional water and wastewater projects that are on the capital improvement plan, so that we can reduce the water rate, not this year, but potentially in future years. So this is, we had the person come down and talk about how the rate would potentially increase by 20% year over year over the next 5 years. We talked about that plan over the next 5 years, and this is by working to spend some of this money now on capital projects. this potentially reduces that rate increase that we were projecting in future years. It reduces that. Counselor Tavares, you did have a question about could we use this for ARPA projects on the city side as opposed to using it on, using it for water and wastewater projects? And that was a really good question, and I talked to Mason about that, and the answer is 100% yes, we certainly could. And his and the mayor's intent behind this was the money was originally set aside and used for water and wastewater projects, and he wanted to keep it with that, with what it was originally intended for. And where we're looking at these fairly large rate increases for the water and wastewater rates, he thought it would be prudent to sort of try to reduce those. So that was in the mayor's thought process behind it. So I thought that made sense to me. But to answer your question, yes, if we could find projects and they could be put under contract in the correct amount of time and could be completed by the end of next year, in theory, we could use these funds for projects on the city side. At this point, I don't think that would be a good idea. I think approving this makes sense, but I did look into it for you. That concludes my comments.
Councilor Tavares.
Thank you so much for looking into that. I appreciate that. It was more of a learning question for me, I think, more an opportunity to educate myself on that. So, but I totally agree with the rationale. So, thank you so much.
It was a great question, and I screwed up by not thinking about it ahead of time. So, thank you.
Great. Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you. And from the docket of April 2nd, 2024, I move to approve the submission of the 2024-2028 CDBG 5-year consolidated plan and the program year 2024 annual action plan for the period July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on or before May 15th, 2024. In addition, once the final allocation for program year 2024 is released by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Municipal Council approves the administration increasing or decreasing funds proportionally in each proposed category.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
This is just approving the CDBG budget that was presented to us.
Very good. Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
That concludes the business for the Finance Committee. I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Foa.
The IT and Infrastructure Committee has no business this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Lavoy.
Reporting for the Licensing Committee from the docket of April 16th, 2024. I move to approve an automatic amusement device renewal from Spooky Games located at 9 North Main Street for 1 video game.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
It's pretty straightforward, talked about it in committee, and I think we're good to move forward with
Okay.
that.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And that concludes the business for the Licensing Committee, and I'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Nick. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you. Reporting for the City Property and Claims Committee from the docket of April 16th, 2024. I move to declare the following fire department equipment as surplus and available for disposition: a 1998 Pierce fire engine, a 2001 Ford F-350 pickup truck, and a 2003 Ford Crown Vic.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
I have none.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer? Yes. Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes? Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of April 16th, 2024, I move to accept a donation of $2,500 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the Attleboro Elks Lodge, numbered 1014, to the City Veterans Office.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
None other than to say thank you, as usual, to the Attleboro Elks.
Always stepping up. Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
That is all the business City Property and Claims has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Very good. Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. Reporting for Public Works Committee, I have two motions from the docket of April 16, 2024. I move to transfer $182,892 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for Capital to account Citywide Transfer to Capital Fund, and to further transfer $182,892 to fund City Hall Facility Complex transfer from General Fund for funds to purchase a 150-watt diesel generator for City Hall Complex.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Lavoy, motion is in order. Any comments?
You said Council Lavoy.
I said thank you, Councilor
Oh,
Lavoy, because
I thought you said,
I was on par with you, so.
I'm no longer saying thank you to anyone.
no, I swear
That's
that,
it.
listen,
How dare you.
I could
I
be
know.
wrong, but anyway, I do not have any comments we discussed in committee.
Very good. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of April 16th, 2024, I move to transfer $85,280 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for Capital to account Park Outdoor Facility Improvements for the repair and painting of the Newell Shelter at Capron Park.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Holmes. Vice President Dolan.
I'm gonna look at the tape. This is for the painting of the Newell Shelter, we discussed in committee.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And that's all the business for Public Works Committee, and I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you very much. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. Reporting from Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, from the docket of April 16, 2024, I move to approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments regarding the receipt of an emergency management performance grant from the Massachusetts Emergency Management in the amount of $20,150.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
We discussed it in committee.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote with Councilor Cobus. Mr. Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa? Yes. Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of April 16, 2024, I move to transfer $45,000 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Fire Dispatch Overtime to complete fiscal year 24.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
No, we discussed it in committee.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That concludes the business this evening, and call for committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delicio. Reporting for Personnel, Veterans, Human Services Committee, from the docket of April 16, 2024, I move to approve the appointment of Linda G. Marino 132 Locust Street to fill an expired term on the Board of Election Commissioners, term to expire February 2028.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
No, sir, we discussed it in committee.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
From the docket of April 16, 2024, I move to approve the appointment of Ethan Matos, 45 Linda Street, to fill an expired term on the Council on Human Rights, term to expire February 2027.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
No, sir, we discussed in committee.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
From the docket of April 2nd, 2024, I move to approve a 2% increase in the city's compensation plan for fiscal year 25, effective July 1st, 2024, for employees in the exempt classification.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
No, sir, we discussed in committee.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
For the docket of April 2nd, 2024, I move to approve the placement of the local inspectors to grade 7 and place the plan examiners to grade 8 in exempt classification plan for the Attleboro Laborers Union, and add the title of veterinary to Article 16, uniform and clothing allowance and personnel rules and regulations.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
No, sir, we discussed in committee.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of April 2nd, 2024, I move to approve the request to change the exempt classification plan, adding a guest services supervisor to the exempt classification plan for park and forestry, keeping Park Zoo, in addition to moving the position of curator of education from Attleboro Laborers Association Local Number 1144 Laborers Contract to the exempt classification plan. Therefore, place the guest services supervisor to grade 4, and place the education curator to grade 6 in the exempt classification plan.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
We discussed in committee.
Additional questions, comments? Councilor Angelo, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
It seems like we're moving a lot of positions out of the into exempt. Do we have an update for when we're gonna have the classification plan? And I'm uncomfortable continuing to do it this way.
Yeah,
I think I'd like to see the results of that survey.
Yeah.
I know we have another couple of public hearings coming down as well.
I had, the first look, when I looked at it, it looked like we were piecemealing it, but I did question that, and it was explained to me that it went, first it was with the group that was working on this, and then it went to all the interviews, did all that stuff. And now, from all that, now it's back, with all that information is back to the company, and they're working on seeing where all the finances should be for each position, and they're grading that. There has been messages out to this people and saying, hey, how much longer? And I'm told this could, hopefully, they're hoping to see this in a few, 2 to 3 weeks, hoping. But I was told that this was separate from this happening.
Okay.
But I can understand, because I thought the same thing.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a lot, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Holmes?
Thank you. Yes, I'm really glad that you brought that point up, because I know that there's another public hearing coming up, and it does feel a little bit like, it's like, I don't know, every couple of weeks, there's like a new public hearing or new business coming, communications coming down, so it'd be nice to know what the full plan is here instead of,
Yep.
yeah.
Should be very shortly.
Additional questions? Councilor Corbett?
If it's only a couple weeks before we get the results of that, is there any harm in, do we need this in before the fiscal year? Does this affect the budget? Is there any harm in rescinding the second and sitting on it for a couple weeks?
It's not a question I asked. It's definitely not a question I asked.
I'd prefer to sit on it, personally.
Councilor Reynolds?
I would think to some degree it is going to affect the budget, or it wouldn't have been coming down. So I would disagree with holding it.
So, before I get to Council Angela, what I would say is, we still have 2.5 months under the current budget. You know, my ask is if we do go the route that Council Cobus is asking, our next meeting isn't until May. I believe May 7th is our next full meeting, because we're not meeting on the 30th. That's our 5th. I know Councilor Cobus will be doing budget hearings. So I think it'll give you a couple weeks to get some of these answers, and then I think it might ease a lot of the concerns that some of us have. Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delacio. The only answer I don't have is just if this is going to affect the budget. What I do know is that these positions are what's best for the zoo right now. Whether or not what comes back in, say, 2 or 3 weeks with the survey that they're doing, this is definitely completely independent of that. And this is positions that are needed to actually give a better experience to the zoo. I guess in my opinion, if I was going to question, I would have questioned on one of the other ones. Certainly not this one. It would have been one I would have questioned because I think this is completely separate from that survey that they're doing. This is to get a better experience and to get things moving a lot better for the zoo. And in my opinion, I think it's important that we would actually take care of this. But I'm more than happy to ask if it's going to affect the budget unless there's other questions that need to be asked.
So, before we get to Vice President Dolan, what I would say, councilors, I don't think anyone's questioning the importance of this position at all, especially with Council Reynolds and I, was it
Last September?
Last September, I think, yeah. We sat on the committee to talk about where the zoo's going. I love where the new zoo director's taking it. I just think I'm ready and willing to vote this tonight. I just have concern that every other week, it's changed this one from the exempt, from the laborers to exempt, and it just seems piecemeal. I just want to make sure we're asking the questions we should be asking. Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. I understand your concerns. Excuse me, definitely. I would feel more comfortable voting this out tonight myself. And I agree with Council Angelo that, we could have questioned the other ones as well, but, that's neither here nor there. But I agree with the concerns, but I would like, considering the zoo position and what we're doing, I'd like to vote this out tonight. Thank you.
Council Fowler.
Could you explain to me, please, what the survey is that you are talking about and why this is totally independent of it?
So the survey was to review the positions and make sure that they're being paid appropriately in what they're doing. Because what happens over the years is we've had, like any position in could be in any business, could be in any government, where all of a sudden you're doing this person leaves, now we're going to have you take on this and then not replace that position, because now all of a sudden we found out that, this person can do this and that person can do that. And that's, over the years, that's happened a lot. And so then they kind of looked at it and said, well, we're losing this person, that person, because they're going to this city or that city or this town, or it could be that position or whatever. So we're losing people because a lot of the salaries really haven't been felt that they've been paid appropriately. So this was to conduct that, to see where all the positions in the city are.
So the whole city?
The whole city, yes. Yeah, and that's where we stand right now.
Yeah, and Councilor Angelo has done a really good job. It's a class and comp study. This isn't any, we're not saying, hey, Mike, I know you like this, we don't. I just think that
Yep.
these are questions we need to ask. We had a public hearing, no one came down to discuss. We have other public hearings. I would like to see someone come down to answer some of these questions that we should be asking during the public hearing. At first, we should have questioned some, but I was like, man, maybe it's just a little course correction here, course correction there. But now it seems to be more frequent. So my ask and hope is that we'll have someone here at the public hearing to answer some of these questions.
What if we have Lynn come down for our next committee meeting?
That'd be great.
Yeah, okay.
That'd be great.
So I'll ask her to come on down if she's available.
And, I'd also request that her or someone from her office speak at the public hearings when we have these monumental changes.
Sure.
Great. Additional questions or comments?
Oh, so are we going to keep, sorry. So is the plan to keep it in committee then at this point, or are we voting on it?
Yeah, I don't think Vice President Dolan is willing to rescind the second, which is her prerogative for sure.
So, sorry, so if we vote it down, then it could potentially come down again, and we could, like, what would happen, I guess, if it was a no vote? Because I do think that this requires, the fact that we're having another public hearing and that there's a lot of just a lot of changes that seem to be happening, even the department title changed. I mean, I think we need to know what's going on here a little bit.
So, if I may,
Yes.
what we could do, and kind of splitting the difference here, is we do have a special meeting scheduled for next week. We could recess right after the mayor's presentation and the presentation, which I'll talk about at the end. Go into your committee, have Lynn come down, then we could go back into the public hearing, the regular meeting, and we could vote it out then. So we have a public hearing.
Oh, so the
We have a
special,
special
voted on the
meeting.
special meeting?
Yep, we have a special meeting so the mayor can present the budget. We're going to present former Councilor Bennett, Conti, and Blair with their plaques from last term. Then we can recess, call your meeting to order. Lynn can answer these questions. We can then recess the meeting, and then we can vote it out at that point. If people are uncomfortable, I think it expedites it. We don't really lose a ton of time on this.
May I? I'm fine with that. So that'll be the 23rd, right?
Yep.
I'm fine with that. You know, and I really do understand why there are concerns, but also, you know, this is also can be discussed in committee, or anybody can contact the mayor or Lynn if they have any questions about what's going on, or go through Mike, of course, but if that's what everybody wants to do, I'll rescind my second, knowing that we're gonna vote this out on the 23rd.
Council Holmes.
Thank you. So I think when it's a one-off, but now that I'm seeing in the mayor's communication that there's another change in a position, and then as I started to think about it, even their department change, and I'm just kind of feeling a little bit like disconnected with what's going on. So I think it's not necessarily just this one vote. It's now I'm starting to think about all of it together and just feeling a little bit like it would be helpful to have that information.
Yeah, so if I may, I agree with Council Holmes, and that's what started my concern, is when I saw it in the mayor's communication this afternoon. So I think this body does a good job of asking questions and reaching out to department heads. I think that this was just spurred by the mayor's communication this evening,
Okay,
from my perspective.
I'll rescind my second.
All right, that's all there is for Personnel, Veterans, Human Service Committee. Call for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Sawyer.
Zoning and land use has no business this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Waterman.
Yes, the Traffic and Transportation Committee has one item tonight from the docket of October 3rd, 2023. The following, I would move to strike this following that I'm about to read. The following business on October 3rd was referred for study and recommendation to traffic. Request for study was to reduce speed limit on South Avenue from Tiffany to the state layout from 50 to 40 miles an hour. The posted speed limit eastbound on the South Ave on the other side of the 95 interchange at that time was posted 40 miles an hour, passing other homes located on South Ave.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order. Any comments?
Well, we talked about it in committee, but I just want to repeat that at this time, on both sides of South Ave, it's been reset to 50 miles an hour, and I think for good reasons, which we discussed last week, and I believe it's appropriate, so I move to strike this item.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this requires a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And that concludes the business of the Traffic and Transportation Committee. Will meet at the next appropriate time.
Councilor Tavares.
Thank you, President Delicio. Reporting for ordinances, elections, and legislative matters from the docket of October 17, 2023. I move to call for a public hearing on May 21st, 2024 for changes to 7-8.2 of the city ordinance, requesting a review and overhaul of the abatement process for non-municipal users of the city's rubbish recycle program.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments? Any questions or comments? Councilor LeBoy.
Is that date correct for 21st?
5/21st. Yep.
I thought I had 23rd.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the business of ordinances, elections, and legislative matters.
Thank you. Councilor Tavares.
The special committee on tax abatement review has no business this evening. I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delicio. As we just recently spoke on compensation classification, there'll be no business tonight. Call for a next meeting at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Foa.
From the docket of March 19th, 2024, the Special Committee on Rules and Procedures, I move to approve the following change to Article 5 of the Rules and Procedures.
Second.
For the record, I want to read the entire change. This is just the change for those procedures that govern Committee of the Whole. And one further explanation in the transfer of documents and computers. Every subparagraph turned out to be A. I will read it A, B, C. Article 8, Citizens' Rights to Speak at Municipal Hearings. Section 1, Committee of the Whole. Committee of the Whole refers to that portion of a municipal council meeting at which the public may address the council, subject to the limitations set forth below. 8-1.1 Purpose. The purpose of the Committee of the Whole is to afford members of the public other than city officials acting in an official capacity an opportunity to address municipal council. Remarks by speakers may concern items that are not on the municipal council's agenda, but which are within municipal council's jurisdiction. 8-1.2 Convening Committee of the Whole. To permit public comments during municipal council meetings open to the public comments period. The council president shall, in the president's reasonable discretion, upon motion and a second, convene the municipal council as a committee of the whole. B, the committee of the whole shall occur prior to discussion of agenda items unless in the president's reasonable judgment the president states the reason for rearranging the order of a public meeting or for not convening a committee of the whole. 8-1.3 Meeting procedures. A, upon convening of the municipal council as committee of the whole, council president shall serve as the chairperson or may designate another member as chairperson. The chairperson shall oversee the committee of the whole, directing the proceedings and calling upon speakers in an order the president determines. B, at the commencement of each committee of the whole session, the president shall expressly invite members of the public to speak, ensuring that the process for doing so is clear. C, the public comments period shall always be conducted in an orderly and peaceable manner, although the municipal council may not prohibit speech solely on the basis that it may be upsetting and/or offensive to members of the municipal council or the public. 8-1.4 Speaker rules and guidelines. To maximize the public's opportunity to be heard during committee of the whole sessions and to ensure the ability of the municipal council properly to consider each matter brought to it and to conduct the city's business in an orderly and peaceable manner, the following rules and procedures shall regulate speakers' participation during the public comment period. A, a person who wishes to address the municipal council during committee of the whole must first be recognized by the council president. That would be a recognized person. B, public comments may be made in person or in writing, including email. written public comments. Written public comments delivered to the city clerk prior to the start of municipal council meeting shall be made available to each councillor. Written public comments will not be read aloud during the public comments period of the committee of the whole. C, except as provided below, only one recognized person may approach the lectern and microphone at any one time. Only the person at the microphone will be allowed to speak, and each person may speak only once. A recognized person may include more than one person where the recognized person uses an interpreter or requires assistance with oral communications. D, speakers are asked to state their name and address if a resident or stated legislative interest in Attleboro before making any comment. E, speakers shall address their comments to the entire municipal council rather than to any individual member, clerk, or staff. F, the municipal council shall not permit persons to testify or present evidence to committee of the whole on a matter where a public hearing that was before the municipal council has been closed and a decision thereon is still pending. G, each speaker will be allowed 4 minutes to speak. The council president shall end the speaker's comments once the speaker reaches the specified time limit, or when, in the reasonable judgment of the council president, the speaker's comments exceed the jurisdiction of the municipal council. Speakers may not assign their time to others. H, if there are 8 or more people who wish to make the same public comment, the municipal council encourages the selection of a spokesperson for the group. When there is a spokesperson for the group of 8 or more, the spokesperson shall be allowed 6 minutes to speak. Upon being recognized, the spokesperson should identify themselves as a group spokesperson to the council president. Prior to speaking, the number of people who wish to raise the same public comment shall be identified by a show of hands, and such number shall be made part of the record. The speaker's time shall begin after that number is made part of the record. I, when a speaker has finished their remarks or their time has expired, the council president may open the floor to the municipal council. This period shall not begin until after the allotted time has expired or the speaker has completed his public comments. J, when the floor is open to the municipal council, members may ask clarifying questions and make comments. Councilors shall avoid debate with the speaker. 8-1.5, rising from the committee of the whole, upon a motion by any municipal council member, duly seconded and passed by a majority vote, the municipal council shall conclude the committee of the whole. When the municipal council rises from the committee of the whole, the council president shall continue with the remaining agenda. And that completes the revision.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I may make some comments.
You may, and then we'll go to Council Reynolds.
What this language does is create clear procedures for the conduct of committee of the whole. It is in conformity with the case law that applies to us under the Massachusetts Supreme Court decision, and otherwise, as I said, clarifies how we will proceed. It allows anybody who has an interest in Attleboro's business or who is a resident of Attleboro to come forward and speak to us. It acknowledges that some people may need an interpreter, some people may need a translator, and it allows for more than one person to be at the lectern in those circumstances. And it makes clear that public speech cannot be restrained solely on the fact that it is offensive to members of council or to the public. I want to say, before I just turn this over to comments in general, that the committee members, Counselor Dolan, Counselor Holmes, have put in an extraordinary effort in helping me revise these procedures, have attended special committee meetings, and I appreciate their work, and this reflects their diligent interest and activity in coordinating something which I believe will assist us and to facilitate committee of the whole meetings.
Before I recognize Counselor Reynolds, I believe Counselor Cobus is also on the committee and did an awful lot of work as well. Counselor Reynolds.
Okay.
And then Counselor Dolan, Vice President Dolan.
No, it's fine.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment, if I might, to, what is it, section 8-1.4G, that each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak.
That would actually be, wouldn't be a friendly, it would be a full amendment if there's a second.
Second.
Motion's in order. Any comments, Counselor Reynolds?
I just think that we should keep it as 3, that it seems to go in line with some of the, the school committee and whatnot that is doing that, and I think we should stay in line with that. I have several other comments after that, though, I'd like.
Sure. Counselor LaVoy, Counselor do you have comments on the?
No, I just wanted to clarify that I'm not on the committee, and Counselor Cobus did
I
an
made a
extensive
mistake.
amount of
My
work as well,
apologies.
so, thanks.
Thank you. Counselor LaVoy and then Counselor Fuller.
Thank you, and I share Councilor Reynolds' thoughts on the 3-minute mark. It does coincide with the school committee, and I think having that same transparency of government on both sides is beneficial to most. And I did make that comment in committee as well, but I do want to, so I support that, but I want to make note that I will also propose an amendment because I'd like to see the council be able to elect more time as needed for a speaker by a vote. But I'll make that amendment after, but I just wanted to vocalize support. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Fuller.
I believe 4 minutes is not excessive. There are communities which allow 5 minutes, and it is true the school committee allows 4 minutes, although the comments there are more focused and limited. The reason that I think 4 minutes is reasonable is that the general public is not used to coming forward and speaking. It takes them a minute or two to get settled, to open their papers, to consider how they want to address things. And I believe that with all that preliminary work, if we limit it to 3 minutes, in fact, be given less than 4 minutes, they will, I'm sorry, if we are talking about 3 minutes, they will have something like 2.5 minutes to make their position clear. I think 4 minutes is a reasonable time. It gives people time to acclimate to being in front of us, to being at the lectern, and to speaking. I think it is a reasonable time. It is different from what the school committee has. I don't think we have to exactly parallel the school committee. Our work does not exactly parallel that of the school committee. So I urge you to consider the 4 minute.
Additional questions on the proposed amendment? Seeing none, voice vote.
Roll call.
Roll call, so we'll start with Councilor
Tavares.
Tavares. Okay. This will be a roll call vote, and again, what we're voting on is each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes, which was the amendment down from 4.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
No.
Ms. Sawyer?
No.
Mr. Angelo?
I'm going to pass on this vote. No,
You need a reason to abstain, so you need to,
I don't know how I feel about either way on it.
you need a vote.
All right. Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
No.
Vice President Dolan?
No.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
No.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
President Delicio, I forgot you, sorry.
No worries, yes.
5 yeas, 6 nays.
Motion fails. Okay, we're back to the initial amendment. Council Holmes and Council Tavares and Council Reynolds.
Thank you. So, thank you, Counselor Fuller. You've put so much work into this, and we spent the last few Friday nights. It was actually a lot of fun working on this. And some of the areas that I think are important to highlight that we included here were H, where if there's 8 or more people speaking on something, that we'll get the count for how many people are in favor of this, and then just allow the person to speak for 6 minutes. And this does include that once the council opens up a dialogue with the individual or with the individuals speaking, that the 3 minutes is now, that would be, or the 4 minutes, sorry, would be off the table, and that now it would go into potentially asking clarifying questions. So it wouldn't restart the 4 minutes again. It would then be up to the council to ask clarifying questions, and that could go on until we get the information that we need. And then the one area that we really spent a lot of time on, believe it or not, is I think it, let's see here, J. So where it says may ask clarifying questions or make comments. Because technically, in the past, we've used committee of the whole as an opportunity to potentially congratulate someone or thank them for coming in, which is really a comment. And really, committee of the whole, we're supposed to just ask clarifying questions and kind of be quite stoic here. So, but the councilors who have been on the council for a while did want to include also make comments, because we do feel like sometimes we do want to congratulate someone or make a comment about what they're coming to speak to us about. So that is one area that we did struggle with. And that concludes my comments.
Councilor Tavares? Then, did you have any hands up, Nick? Nope, okay, thank you, then Councilor Sawyer.
Councilor Fuller, thank you so much for your work on this. I know something like this is not easy to do and takes a lot of time to write up. So thank you and the members of your committee. Just a couple of comments on section 8-1.3C. And the last phrase of that sentence that says, although the municipal council may not prohibit speech solely on the basis that it may be upsetting and or offensive to the members of the municipal council or the public. I'll just say my first comment there is no argument there. Of course, that's the law, right? That comes straight out of probably case law, and so 100% agree with that. My comment has to do with the policy aspect of that. So from a policy standpoint, I think, and this might be rather nitpicky, but I think we want to encourage civility, right, in conversation, and we definitely want members of the public to come and speak in a peaceable manner, while we know there might be less latitude than we would like to maybe regulate speech based on the law. And that's a good thing, even though we might be uncomfortable with it at times. I think from a policy standpoint, we may want to encourage more of the peaceable side of things, knowing that that is a members of the public's right to, to sort of air their grievances if they have them, or comments in a way that maybe we think should be done differently. But I might recommend removing that last line and putting a period after peaceable manner, in my opinion.
Are you?
Yes, so I'll set forth an amendment, yes, to do so.
And was seconded by Councilor Holmes. Okay, so Councilor Tavares, can you just state that again, what you want it to
Sure,
look like?
so the amendment would be to strike maybe I'll just read it. Strike the following phrase. Although the municipal council may not prohibit speech solely on the basis that it may be upsetting and or offensive to members of the municipal council or the public.
Councilor Holmes already seconded. Do we have additional comments? Okay, Councilor Fuller, Councilor Reynolds, Councilor Vice President Dolan.
This is here because although we are all familiar with the case law that demands that we not censor speech, I don't think that the general public is. And when they hear us being verbally insulted, attacked, not violently so, but using simply deplorable language to describe what we are doing or what they believe we should do or have done, it's hard for people to understand why we permit that. And so it seemed to me important to clarify, more for the public really than for the municipal council, why that's permitted, and to emphasize that we do not cut people off because of the substance of what they say. I still think that's important. I do appreciate your comments about how difficult it is to write these kinds of procedures, but making absolutely clear that it is not an effort to address the substance of what someone says, no matter how vile, but merely to address conduct and to ensure that conduct is peaceable and orderly and in no way risks violence, is the intention behind this paragraph. And I think it's important that we state it and remind ourselves and others of why we are allowing expressly free speech.
Councilor Reynolds.
So I totally disagree with that entire comment, and am fully in line with Councilor Tavares. That was one of the things I said. I had several more. That was the next one. I totally think it should end at peaceable manner. I think by adding the rest of it, you're basically saying, hey, have at it. Go for it. Say what you will. We can't do anything about it. So I think the whole thing we're trying to suggest to people that come before the council is to conduct themselves in an orderly and peaceable manner, which is what we ask of everyone when you're trying to be respectful in general. So I do not think we need to add that second sentence, mini paragraph, and I'm totally opposed to keeping it there.
Thank you, Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. I understand what Councilor Tavares is saying, and Councilor Reynolds as well, and I agree with Councilor Foa, but I also agree with everything you said except more for the public, because this is also a document for councilors and new councilors, and if I was to read this as a new councilor, and that sentence wasn't there, and somebody was offensive to me, I'd be like, whoa, I'm potentially say something, try to stop them, when really we are infringing on their First Amendment rights. And prior to this, we did, we do encourage peaceable, but we can't force peaceable and we can't force orderly. So I would be in favor of keeping it as is, as it's worded exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome, Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. I think that I could go along with this amendment, and keeping in mind, the next step was to potentially create like a speech for before the committee of the whole that would be spoken, so that would be an opportunity to potentially let the public know what is allowed versus this is a kind of a rule book for counselors. It does feel a little bit like it's not a it isn't for the general public per se, to Councilor Dolan's point. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delacio. Thank you, Councilor Tavares. I appreciate that amendment. Completely agree with it. Completely agree with Councilor Reynolds. And I am all for that amendment. I just don't think that we need to add that other part, like we're inviting more issues. And that's all I have to say on that.
Councilor Waterman.
Well, I see both arguments, but I think somebody who's talking to us in council of the whole should be totally allowed to disagree with us, but not to be insulting or blasphemous. And I think there's a way that a human being can disagree that makes me want to support your amendment. That's all I have to say.
Just Councilor Tavares and Vice President Dolan.
So just an overarching comment, and I definitely understand where everybody's coming from, regardless of where you land on this issue, but regardless of what we decide, I mean, the law is the law, right? So people can come and they can say what they want as long as they're within their First Amendment rights. So I think this should be more narrowly focused on our rules and procedures and how we manage this, but of course the law is the law. So whether it's written here that, you know, someone can come to the podium during committee of the whole and insult every one of us here or not, that doesn't change the status of the law. So I don't see what we gain by putting that in there. So, but to your point, Councilor Dolan, I guess it's possible councilors might not know the law on this, right? And I think that's why we have a city solicitor, right, to help us navigate through some of these issues when they come up, regardless of what they are. So I think utilizing that resource as a council is how we educate ourselves on things like that come up, because obviously they will inevitably come up. So that concludes my comments.
Vice President Dolan.
So I want to be clear, and again, I agree with you, Councilor Tavares. I understand your point, but I really feel, I don't know why, but I feel like this is more of rules and procedures for counselors, and I just feel that as a new counselor that's reading this should know what, you know, just like we say, don't get into a debate. You know, I forgot which letter it is, but not to debate. Nobody would know that unless they read these. So that's all I have to say, and I don't want to. I won't support the amendment. Thank you.
So I just want to make sure, if I'm just going to start recognizing saying people, we've got to start moving on and move the discussion forward. I'll go to Councilor Foa and then Councilor Kobus.
First, I want to make clear that orderly and peaceable manner really addresses physical violence. If anyone in the public comes forward and is disorderly or unpeaceable, what that addresses is the threat of violence or physical violence. It does not address speech issues. It might be possible, and it might make more sense. Consider this: if instead of that last line and a half, we said that municipal council affirms the public's right to free speech.
Second.
Well, we need to vote.
We have a
already
motion.
You
can-
Thank you.
excuse me.
We already have an amendment on the floor. So just given what that one is, I want to have that one go through either up or down, then we can address the way that Councilor Foa just suggested it. Before we do that, Councilor Kobus.
And I just wanted to agree with Councilor Dolan's points regarding the target of this being towards the council. These are our rules and procedures, and I would hate for a councilor to say, oh, the public comment period shall always be conducted in an orderly and peaceful manner, period. It's a therefore you shall not, or like, it just refer to that and not really understand the law, which maybe a freshman counselor might not understand that, or I would hate to have somebody just point to that one line.
What I will say, though, is we review this at orientation.
We do.
You know, I think, but just want that out there. Councilor Tavares, then we'll move on to a vote. I'd like to move this to a vote sooner than later. And then we can bring up the amendment that Ms. Forward just brought up. So, Jonathan.
I'll
and-
actually defer my comment. I think Councilor Lavoy has a comment.
Councilor Lavoy.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. One comment I just wanted to make, and as we're, given the expectation that this sets guidelines for the council. At the end of the day, the committee of the whole is ran by the president. So I think to assume that the president of the council would not understand the First Amendment rights given to the general public, I think that's a bit of a stretch. So that's the only comment I'll make.
Additional questions or comments on this piece? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
Ms. Foa?
No.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
No.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
I'm sorry, can I just get exactly, we're voting to take out that last part of that line? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Then, no.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
7 yeas, 4 nays.
Motion passes. I will now recognize Councilor Foa.
I move to amend section 8-1.3C to read after peaceable manner, although municipal council affirms the public's right to free speech.
Second.
What is it?
Although the municipal council, how did you word the last?
Affirms
Affirms.
the public's right to free speech.
Okay. And Vice President Dolan, you second that?
Yes.
Additional questions or comments? Councilor Lavoy.
I just want to point out that we all swear to an oath before we take the office that recognizes that we adhere to the Constitution, and I really don't think we have to reiterate that. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments on this? What I will say real quick is I think that this is a very good compromise to everybody else's, and I can easily get behind this. If there's no other questions or comments on this, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
No.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
President Delicio? I
Yes.
don't know why I'm forgetting you tonight, I
all right,
apologize.
don't
10
worry,
yeas,
don't
1
forget
nay.
Thank you, motion passes. So now we're back to the motion as amended. Any other questions or comments? Council Sawyer.
I just wanted to make a comment about, it's 8-1.4B, that we're saying that comments may be made in person or in writing. We're not giving any kind of virtual accommodations for anybody that might be, say, homebound, handicapped, can't get here in order to make their comments. And I wanted to, I guess my question is, should that be put in any way?
Council Holmes.
Thank you. This is the first part of what we're working on. The next part is going to have to go over public hearings, and then the next step is going to be looking at how people can access us. So I do think that this isn't going to be the first and last piece that you'll see before the committee, is my understanding.
Vice President Dolan, then Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you. And just to parlay off, of Council Holmes, we did discuss this at length. I mean, we discussed everything at length during these meetings. And we did address that, and we don't, at this time, feel that we have enough information on what we'll need for personnel to make this happen. So we didn't have the details. We wanted to get something passed to address all our concerns, but we really don't have the information and what we'll need for personnel and how we're going to accomplish that. So that will be coming, again, this isn't my committee, so I don't want to speak for the committee, but I believe they will be addressing that at a later point. Thank you.
Councilor Reynolds.
So I have a question first, but I'm trying to understand why 8-1.4H says if there's 8 or more people who wish to make the same public comment, why we're allowing that to be 6 minutes to speak versus 3. It's the same public comment. I can understand if there's 8 people and there's 3 people that have different things to state, or they come into the group with 3 different things to say, then 3 different people could speak 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, but, the thing is, but why, if we're talking about the same public comment in a group of 8, why are they getting 6 minutes?
Councilor Forward.
Thank you, President Lucio. Our intention was to try and avoid having 8 people get up and say the same thing. If there could be a representative, then we would extend them a bit more time, and that would save us the 6 times 3 or 4, whatever, that would otherwise be used. It gives a little bit of leeway for those who agree to be represented by a spokesperson.
Again, I don't understand the
Councilor
6 minutes. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I don't understand the 6 minutes. If they're saying the same public comment. We've done this before at meetings where we've said no more people, if you've got the same comment, you've already heard it, you're saying the same thing somebody else has already said, please raise your hands, and we take account. We've always done it that way. Unless it's something drastically different in the group, we've always asked them to have a speaker, and they've been able to do exactly the same. I don't see 6 minutes versus 3 or 4, whatever it is. 4 minutes to me should be fine if it's a group that's consulting. If they're not going to say the same thing, well then, hey, have at it. All 8 people should be able to talk.
Additional questions or comments? Councilor Lavoy.
Hearing Councilor Reynolds' point, I'd make a motion to strike section H, so 8.1, 8-1.4, section H. Just strike it in its entirety.
If there's no second, the motion will fail. Motion fails. Additional, Councilor Holmes and Councilor Forward.
Oh, okay, I'm glad it failed, okay. This was, sometimes we'll have, this was an attempt to encourage a spokesperson, but give a little bit more time, so that way there would be less people speaking. So to Councilor Fo's point, it could be, 10 people, 3 minutes each, versus maybe just one person saying, we're here to represent anything. So we've often seen groups come in like that, and so that was our thought process behind that. I think.
Councilor Forward, did you have a comment?
I think Councilor Holmes spoke for me.
Okay, Councilor Cobus.
I think a lot of the comments that I've been hearing have been very defensive, and a lot of what we talked about in what we put in here, including that paragraph that I feel very strongly about encouraging a spokesperson, I thought was very positive, and I thought a lot of what we did here was trying to encourage engagement with the community, and I thought was very positive, as opposed to making this only defensive. I'd like to encourage engagement with the community, as opposed to just sort of writing this to be like trying to reduce it to only 3 minutes and try to do this. I'd like to encourage like a group of 8 people to come out and all raise their hands and have a spokesperson and have like a group and have a conversation and have a government where we can talk and we're not afraid to sort of have these discussions, and like, I want this honorable body to be that kind of body and have the community here and fill those seats. Like and I thought that's, and I believe that's what this is, and I think it's great, and so, I don't know, this isn't all defensive. I think there's some really positive stuff in here that the committee put together, so, it's not all defensive.
Very good. Councilor Lavoy, then Councilor Reynolds.
So I was going to, in a sense, agree with you, and then as you kept speaking, now I disagree, because we're going from no time limit to now limiting time. So I think your statement, and you want everyone here to speak, that's kind of construed now. But what I will say is, where I wanted to strike it, when we talked about it in committee, I did make mention to my concerns of abuse on this set point, and it was said that it was going to be looked into, and then it was in here. So, and I understand I didn't make the last committee meeting, but so that was the only reason why, when Councilor Reynolds expressed that, I thought, I will make the motion to strike. So I don't think it's defensive. I had already kind of been against that, so it was more so just reintroducing what I thought in committee. Councilor Reynolds.
So I'm going to go back to it. If there are 8, what if there's 6? So why can't you say if there are multiple people who wish to make the same public comment, the municipal council encourages, that's a selection of a spokesperson for the group. When there is a spokesperson for a larger group, what's larger? 6, 8, 10, 12? What if there's 25 people out there? Then I think we should leave it up to the president of the council to have a show of hands. Is everybody on the same? We've done that multiple times, so it should be written as something like that to me, that, if a group comes in from one section of the city and they bring 20 people, they're in here for the same reason. It's a group. If it's separate people that show up in the audience from all over the city and they have their own reasons for being here, they're going to want to speak their 3 minutes apiece. They're going to want to do that. But if a group comes here under the auspices of being a group because they have something to say, well, then that's what we're allowing, whether it's 4 people, 6 people, 20 people, 25. We're trying to encourage them to pick a person, and maybe because there's several different things they want to go over, then the council president says, I'm going to open this up for a little longer discussion because there's other points being made. That's my feeling, not to limit it, and then people try to bring in 8 people, or somebody tries to, I have 6, and, we want to talk. To me, that just doesn't make sense. I agree with the spokesperson thing, however.
Councilor Tavares.
I just had really a quick clarifying question. I think if I understand the intention correctly behind H, it makes sense. And so my question is if there were 4 people to show up and they decided to sort of nominate a spokesperson for them versus 20 people, and I'm using those extreme numbers, right, on purpose, right, on either end of the 8. I think 8 is, I guess we could probably agree it's an arbitrary number, but not pointless. And so it seems all that we're doing is we're, as was mentioned, encouraging the consolidation of comments through a spokesperson, but it's not necessarily a requirement, right? So, so those individuals could say, well, I want to speak on my own. And so those 6 people, 8 people, 20 people, they can come and make their comments individually for the specified, time limit that they have. So it just seems like this is, it's creating another option for people, right, to foster that discussion with the city council. So I don't see any harm in it, the way that it's written. And so I know I said my question was going to be more of a clarifying question and ended up being more of a statement, but maybe the question is am I interpreting this correctly?
So one thing to that point, Counselor, is what it says. If there are 8 or more people who wish to make the same public comment, the municipal council encourages. Doesn't mandate. So I think it gives us that flexibility built in there, is just my point of view on this matter. Counselor Angelo, then Vice President Dolan.
Thank you, President Delacio. I like what Council Reynolds is saying, and I'll support that if she wants to make that amendment.
Well, I would like to make an amendment. I was just letting people have their comment.
Well, Counselor Angelo,
Yep.
and then we'll go to Vice President Dolan, and then I can return to you.
I'm all set, thank you.
Me?
Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. Council Tavares said everything perfectly. So if I was here with a group and there was 8 of us, 10 of us, 4 of us, 7, whatever, and we voted on a spokesperson, or, encouraged the spokesperson, and they came up, if they didn't say what I wanted them to say and I was part of that group, I would just raise my hand and come up and speak and say, we let Joe come up, but I also wanted to add this. So as President Delacio said, it's just an option. It's just an option for people. And we're not going to stop anybody from speaking. We're not going to, force people to have one spokesperson. I know we've done it in the past, but it's never really been written down. So I like H exactly the way it is. Thank you.
Counselor Reynolds.
I would like to make an amendment to it, please.
What would you like that amendment to say?
I would like it to say, if there are multiple people who wish to make the same public comment, the municipal council encourages the selection of a spokesperson for the group.
Second.
Oh, well,
Can you
I'm
read that
just-
again,
sorry.
please?
Okay, yeah.
So she wants to replace 8 or more with multiple.
Yes. If there is a spokesperson for a group, the spokesperson shall be allowed 3 to 6 minutes to speak, 4 to 6 minutes to speak, or as identified by the council president.
Yeah,
I'm just,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
So we'll go through it. I don't know that she's done making the amendments,
Yeah.
then we'll go through it.
upon being recognized. Yeah, upon being recognized, I guess the spokesperson would, when they come up and they're being recognized, the spokesperson would identify themselves as the group spokesperson to the council president. Prior to speaking, the number of people.
So here's what we have.
Again.
So Sarah, before we go
Yeah,
into a
look at it.
discussion, so your amendment, and then we'll need a second, is if there are multiple people who wish to make the same public comment, the municipal council encourages the selection of a spokesperson for the group.
Period.
Period, yep, as it is, when there is a spokesperson for a group.
The
The spokesperson shall be allowed 4 to 6
minutes to speak, or 4 to 6, based on, whatever. Or just 4, and the council president could always encourage more than that if nobody comes out of the group. I
just need to know what the amendment is.
I know, I'm looking
So-
at it, it's like it's crazy. Upon being the spokesperson should identify themselves. Well, as a group spokesperson, they might not even know it when they get here unless they've
So-
already made it.
Counselor, I just
I
need
know,
to
I'm
know
sorry,
what the
I get-
amendment is. So,
Okay.
as we have it now, it's if there are multiple people who wish to speak.
Then you could leave the second, right.
Okay, then the
Shall be
next-
allowed 4 to 6, upon being recognized, the spokesperson would identify themselves as the group spokesperson
Okay.
to the council president.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Now, you may comment, Councilor Reynolds.
So, I'm saying it seems like there's a lot of words in there, the way it's written now, that it's, to me, it just seems like we're making a group a size, arbitrary, a number 8, when it could be 4, a group could be 3, a group could be 6, it could be 20. So I don't think we have to have a number in there. Even if there's 20 people, 4 to 6 minutes should be enough if there's a spokesperson. Those are my comments. That's why I think
Okay. Vice President Dolan, then Councilor Angelo, then Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So,
Oh, and Corpus, thank you.
so really, we're not I realize 8 seems arbitrary, but we're not gonna control the people that are here. So if there's 4, and Joe comes up and says, I represent my neighborhood, and he might not even say, and then how many people are there, and the president would say, you know, if we see a big crowd, we know something's going on, it's a big issue, whatever the case is. Does anybody want to be recognized that supports, you know, what Joe's saying, or whatever the case? And then, so 8 might be arbitrary, but it's not set in stone, as Councilor Tavares was saying before. Also, we set a time limit. I don't think we should make a range, because we don't want to force the president, because we don't want to force the president to make that decision. Oh, you only get 4. Well, it says 4 to 6. Why can't I have 6? What, you know, we don't want the president to have to shut somebody down or let them go, or the next person gets shut down at 5. We don't, in my opinion, I don't want the president or the vice president or any other chairperson to have to make that decision to limit or extend. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Angela, then Councilor Holmes.
Thank you, President
and
Lucio.
Councilor Cobus.
I think in a lot of ways, we're overthinking this a bit much. On one section, we don't want to limit speech, but in other sections, we want to limit who can speak and who not can speak. So my point is, and I apologize for not coming across right, but I agree with Councilor Reynolds, and this just kind of opens it up a little bit more to be able to have different groups, you know, and it just gives that more flexibility. I think I like it. I support it, and I think it's a great idea.
Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So I guess, you know, this is feeling like a little bit of a committee meeting. I think Councilor Foe worked really hard at this, and we were in there for over, 3 hours on one Friday night, 3 hours the next Friday night to try to get this worked out. And I think if individuals had concerns, I would have encouraged them to really go to the meeting so that they could have expressed them. I won't support this because I think that the 4 to 6 minutes is a little bit vague. And when we say multiple, that could be a family of 3, and now they're looking for 6. That would be hard to kind of determine. But when we thought of the number 8, it is not an exact, but we'll know if there's a group and and just encourage a spokesperson. This is the first time something like this has been written. It wasn't in prior rules and procedures, and even the raising of the hand was not, even though it is something we've done. So we're trying this out, and then if we need to make some changes in the future, we certainly could do that. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Cobus.
So I will not support this either. I think we have to have very specific numbers here. Now, the number 8 for the size of the group, I'm okay if we want to change that to 6. The number 8 was kind of arbitrary in that we were talking about, like, it could be 6, it could be 8. Like if we want to make an amendment to change that to say we want to say a group size is 6 or greater, I'm okay with adjusting the size of the group, but we need to have a very specific group size number for the group and a very specific number for the number of minutes that they can speak, because we can't put that on the president. We have to have those numbers for both. I'm okay with changing the group size number or the number of minutes, but those numbers have to be specific in this. And so as the amendment is proposed, I will not support it, and we cannot pass it as proposed.
So, Councilor Holmes, thanks for your comment, and I don't want this to come across as diminishing at all the work that has been put into this, because it's a lot of work, right? But at the same time, I think it would be incumbent on us to sort of stress test this, right, as a council. And so I think that's part of what this is, this conversation. So in principle, Councilor Reynolds, I would have no issue with changing the language to say multiple people, right? Because there could be some confusion there of, let's say, residents looking at that, oh, do I need to have 8 people so that we can have a spokesperson? Like, people might misunderstand the way that that's written. And I know that the rules and procedures are meant for us as a city council, but At the same time, residents will probably be referring to this to understand how procedure works when they're here to speak before the council. So I think eliminating as much confusion as possible is a good thing. And so I would see that as eliminating confusion, saying, because it could be 2 people, right? Or it could be 20 people, as we said, the number is really arbitrary, right? And again, it's arbitrary, but it's not pointless, right? There's a point behind it. And so the second part of my comment has to do with what several counselors have said about the time restraint. I think 4 to 6 is vague. I think we should create as much consistency as possible. So I like the fact that there is a time limit there. It says 6 minutes, but one other thing I wanted to consider, because Counselor Dolan brought up a scenario. What if, for example, 8 people, let's just use the number, right? 8 people showed up and decided, hey, we nominate, Joe to be the spokesperson for the 8 of us, and someone, speaks for 6 minutes, and then someone who raised their hand as part of that party, those 8 people, comes up and speaks. Now, have we created a situation where there's now inconsistency because we've given one person 6 minutes to speak, but now that next person comes up and has 4 minutes, yet they were part of that party of 8 people, right, that were speaking through the one spokesperson that was then granted 6 minutes. So that being said, I would be in favor of that if we pulled down the time limit back to 4 minutes just across the board. If you want a spokesperson, they can come and they can speak for the same amount of time as any one individual can on this issue.
So are you making that a friendly amendment to?
If that would be considered a friendly amendment, yes.
I'm
Second.
comfortable with what he's saying, yeah.
Okay,
I
it's a
second
friendly
it.
amendment. So the amendment that we're voting on now is if there are multiple,
No.
pardon me?
Yeah.
It would be.
I'm sorry, I thought, forgive me, may I?
No? Thank you, with all due respect. So as I was saying, is we now have a friendly amendment. The amendment that we will be voting on, is if there are multiple people who wish to make the same public comment, the municipal council encourages the selection of a spokesperson for the group. When there is a spokesperson for the group, the spokesperson shall be allowed 4 minutes. That's the friendly amendment.
Somebody have a second?
I think,
Now-
second.
Is that an amendment to the amendment?
That's it.
We'll take that as an amendment to the amendment as opposed to a friendly amendment, just kind of walking this through my head, right? So, Council Angelo, you seconded it
Yes, sir.
already. So, comments on the amended amendment. Councilor Lavoy.
I agree with this, and when I initially spoke, I mentioned 4 minutes unless, the council wishes to extend it by a vote, and I mentioned that in the committee meeting as well. I think giving more time really opens it up to abuse. You could have the same 8 people within a group all decide that they're the spokesperson. We're not allowed to limit that, and we can't tell someone who is and who is not a spokesperson. So, I could come here by myself and be a spokesperson for my imaginary friends, and I can rightfully do that. And that was the concern I expressed in the committee meeting. So, I support this. I think it's very wise, and that's my comments. Thank you.
So-
Council Reynolds, Council Holmes, and Council Foa.
So I thank you, Council President, for the beginning of that. My final thing is that the rest of this that was up there, upon being recognized, blah, 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 can easily stay there.
Correct.
Yes, okay, I just wanted to be sure of that. So the only thing that we're talking about is the minutes and the numbers. Yes.
8 to multiple, 4 to 6 to 4.
4, yes, sir.
That's what what we're talking about now,
Yes.
the amendment to the
And
amendment.
everything else stays.
Correct.
Yes.
Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So, I haven't seen that be abused before. When there's been a spokesperson, I'm trying to think about a few examples. With mobile home parks, we had a huge group that came in, and there was, I think, 2 spokespeople, and then a couple other individuals did come forward to add in information, and I'm okay with other individuals getting the 4 minutes. So I didn't really feel like anybody abused that, and it went pretty smoothly. So I do think that this is kind of what it already looks like typically, so I won't be supporting the changes to reduce it to 4.
Counsel Fo, Counsel Cobus, Vice President Dolan.
I understood the remark of Counselor Tavares to be that multiple was a vague, open-ended word, and that we should not be using open-ended language. Who is multiple? Is it 2? Is it 10? Is it, what's the number that constitutes multiple? Anything over 1?
That's the way Counsel Tavares felt, he probably wouldn't have brought forth that amendment.
I'm sorry.
Little bit more nuance. So I don't have an issue with the way it's written, 8 people, but I think multiple people might be a little bit more clear for the intent. My bigger issue was about the time limit. Is how do we determine someone is a spokesperson for purposes of allocating time, right? Because so according to this, if somebody chooses to take advantage of this, they could say, all right, well, there's 8 of us here. Again, the example, Joe's the spokesperson, right? And there's 7 other people that have raised their hands indicating that they have sort of elected to have this person be their spokesperson. That's important, I think, for purposes of calculating how much time they have to present. Otherwise, it doesn't matter, right? But with the example that Counselor Dolan brought up, which I think is raised an interesting point, is what if another individual who was part of that group of those 8 people felt like their comments weren't expressed the way that they thought they should be, right? And so they come up to speak. Now, they'll be granted 4 minutes, whereas if I understand this correctly, just looking at how we would enforce this rule, the original spokesperson would have 6 minutes, and anybody else in that party would have had 4 minutes. But I think that sort of defeats the purpose of what that's trying to accomplish.
Okay. We're going around and around. Like, we're really getting, there are no new thoughts. What we need to do is make sure that we're having new ideas, because we're not getting anywhere. I've shown an extreme amount of leniency. We need to get this moving along. Let's see, Counsel Cobus, Vice President Dolan, and Laura, did I see your hand?
I excuse myself from speaking.
Counsel Cobus?
I spoke pretty strongly against multiple and before, but if it's multiple and is changed back to just 4 minutes, that would work, and I could potentially get behind that. The thing I'm struggling with is the idea of defensively fighting against the potential for abuse, and so say for instance one person gets up and speaks for 6 minutes, and then a couple other people get up and speak for 4 minutes, and so we have to sit through that for a little bit longer. In favor of being more welcoming to the public is, I don't know that that's wrong. But at the same time, changing this to say multiple, to make it more convenient in leaving it at 4 minutes when we have the option for the president to open it up for additional comments, at which point the discussion can go on beyond the 4 minutes, I think covers us. So I will support it, even though I said I spoke pretty strongly against the motion just a few minutes ago. I with the new amendment, I can get behind it now.
Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. So clearly, we're beating this to death here. So I can get behind the multiple and 4, but it's not going to preclude people from speaking, whether they had 6 minutes, had Joe up there, whether there's 8 people, 12 people. we're not going, even if they raise their hand that they're part of the 7 or 9 or 12, we're not gonna not allow them to come up and add something that might have been missed by Joe, hypothetically. So I think, you know, I'm fine with multiple in 4 minutes, and again, I'll say it again, this is more for counselors than, no person coming to speak before us is reading these. Thank you.
So we're moving to question. All right, so can you remind me of the move to question? Is there a second needed?
Yes, there is.
Second.
Okay. So there's no more discussion on this debate until we take a vote. Move to question was called by Councilor Holmes, seconded by, I think, half the council. We'll give it to Vice President Dolan. And again, the move to question is on the amendment, I'll call it the Reynolds Amendment, multiple from 8 and 4 to 6 to 4. This will be a roll call vote, and it will be if we're gonna move to question, which means that ends the debate on this particular topic. We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Tavares. That's what I said, Cobus, it just
I
sounded.
thought you did. Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Foa,
No.
Mr. Lavoy,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Mr. Angelo,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Tavares.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes,
10 yeas, 1 nay.
thank you. We are now, debate is ended. We are now voting on the Reynolds Amendment. We'll have roll call vote, this time beginning with Mr. Tavares.
Got it. Mr. Tavares.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
No.
Vice President Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy.
Yes.
Ms. Foa.
No.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes,
9 yeas, 2 nays.
thank you. Motion passes. We are now back to the full motion as amended. Do we have additional questions or concerns? Seeing none, before we call for a vote, I would like to give up the seat, if I may. Thank you. I want to thank the committee and those who came and supported the committee on those Friday nights. This is important work. I believe Council Angelo has been doing a lot of work about how other communities are doing public comment period, or not. We're one of the communities that do this. And it's important to this body. It's important to the success of this city moving forward. People always ask me, they're like, what's the most important issue you face? Depends on who I talk to. Some people, it might be water. Some, it might be trash. But this gives them an opportunity to come before us so we know what they're going through. We talk about government. This is government. Government is governing those when we know how we can help them, how we can work collaboratively. This is some really historic work that this council's doing. Council Forward, you did a tremendous job. What everyone might not have seen is the communication that Councilor Forward has had with me, with Virginia, with the city solicitor, with all of you. You know, Diana and Laura and Todd specifically, you guys put in mountains and mountains of work. I know Councilor Lavoy, Councilor Angelo, you were all there at that first meeting too. This is important to us. We need to be accessible and we need to be able to hear what the residents are telling us. This is making it fair and equitable across the board for everyone. I think, Jonathan, your comments were very apropos on the Reynolds Amendment. But we need to be fair, we need to be consistent. In 4 minutes and 4 minutes, it eliminates a lot of the gray. And we live in a world that has more gray. So I'm sorry for the elongated speech. Tonight was heated, it was long, it was back and forth. But newsflash, this is government, and this is what we signed up for. So from my vantage point, extremely proud night for this council. Thank you. So we'll now vote on the motion as amended. And this will be the final amendment, and it'll be printed all up nice and good in your certificate of vote. This will be a roll call vote, beginning with Council Cobus.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes. There is no new business, there is one piece of old business for which we will recognize Councilor Tavares.
Yes, thank you. Should I read the amendment first or make comments?
Excuse me, I would just read it the way it is written on the paper.
Okay, all right. So, to amend vote number 8 of April 2nd, 2024, trade in fur prohibiting ordinance vote number 8 of April 2nd, 2024, to reflect a change to the last paragraph. What was voted is 11-23.7. Effective date, this ordinance shall become effective upon satisfaction of the requirements for Attorney General approval and for posting or publication provided in MGL Chapter 40, Section 32, no earlier than 6 months after passage. Amend to read 11-23.7, effective date, this ordinance shall become effective upon passage.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
Yes, so, Allison Wood in the mayor's office pointed out something that I had missed originally. So when this piece of business came into the council, this last sentence references MGL Chapter 40, Section 32, which has to do with procedure for how bylaws are approved by the Attorney General's office. That's not applicable for us because we're a city. So this is just the procedure behind that to really strike that, and we're really just simplifying this for purposes of Attleboro as a city.
If I could just add, a lot of times ordinances will come in on a template. And I think where this was one that was adopted across the state, as Mr. Angelo can attest to. So it's just really kind of housekeeping. Council Fowa.
As a result of having looked at the rules and procedures, I note that section 6-2.1 of the ordinance's provisions provide that except as otherwise provided by the charter, every adopted measure shall become effective at the expiration of 30 days after adoption or at a later date. So having it effective upon passage would violate that. And I would therefore, friendly amendment, move to just say effective upon 30 days after passage, so that we're in conformity with our own rules.
So this isn't a committee, this is coming down from our legal secretary. And this says no earlier than 6 months after passage. This is the way we've done things. We can take that discussion offline, because I don't know that it's, I think there's some gray area in that, but right now we're doing what we've done in the past. So, any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. I'm opposed.
Motion passes. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Get up to
Michael, just wanted you.